Hello and welcome. If this is your first video, first tune in, first view of me, my name is Colette. I am known as the casual clinician. I like to talk about all things living, all things not living, from a stance of being clinically trained, intuition powered, and spirit led. This morning, what I feel called to support is a check in. How do you check in with yourself? I want to share some of the questions that I use, some of the statements that I use, and some of the practices that really just support me in knowing where I am, how I am, and how I'm showing up in the world. And also what I may need at any given moment. So when I'm checking in with myself, it can be something that is planned and intentional, like setting time aside, being in a certain spot, being in a certain position, being alone, maybe, being at home, being out in nature. But it can also be intentional and unplanned. Any moment is an opportunity for me to check in with myself. So I want to invite you all to that too, that there may be planned check-ins that you have and start to open to the idea that you truly can check in and tap into yourself at any given moment in any circumstances, situation, while you are in the line at the grocery store, while you are in traffic trying to get from one place to the next, or while you're in the middle of cooking dinner. Any moment is an opportunity to check in with yourself. It only requires being intentional. It does not require planning. When I check in, I tend to have my most intentional breaths as well. So I'm going to tell you now, you are going to hear a lot of sighing, whew, a lot of noises. Those help me to really tap into what's happening with me physically and what I'm feeling into my body. Hmm. That breath is almost like a beacon that goes through each corner of my physical body to just kind of see what I'm feeling. My breath right now is like really connected to my toes being cold, even though they are wrapped up in things that should keep them warm. I'm really feeling how warm the palms of my hands are. I've got some tension across my forehead right now. Um, oh yeah, I can feel those muscles trying to relax. My shoulders feel pretty relaxed, which is a minor miracle for me in some respects. My stomach feels it's kind of it's a mixture of settled and also anticipatory. Yeah, I'm on camera and creating content that I know I'll be posting. So I'm feeling settled and feeling good. And there's always something for me that's wrapped up in when I'm sharing of myself in a public forum like this. So that check in for me definitely starts with the breath. And for me, it starts with the body. If you are a person that has a tendency to think through things in life, I encourage you to start with the body. I encourage you to start with the body. If you're a person that tends to feel through life, you may play around with starting with the check in of the mind and what's happening in the mind. Tailor your check in to be what's most supportive and helpful for you. For me, starting with the body and the breath helps me to really drop in and identify how I'm feeling before I start trying to make sense of it. Oh, checking in with the mind, I'm noticing that I'm just feeling really connected into my current experience. I've got some thoughts floating around about dinner already. I've got some. Hmm. Some ease that's happening in my mind with just feeling really content in my ability to just show people who I am and to invite folks into that world. And they may or may not like it, but they get to decide and they get to see me. I show up as me all the time. So there's an ease that that creates in my mind of I get to be me and I get to be consistent, and folks get to decide if it's something that they vibe with or not. So that's what I notice in my mind. Mm. As we continue our check in, as you check in with what you're feeling in your body, using that breath, using those exaggerated sighs, using a vocal release, you can always huh, do what you got to do, right? As you check in with what's happening in your mind, whether your thoughts are ordered or disorganized, whether they seem to be supporting ease or they seem to be contributing to feelings of stress, just check in and notice and give yourself permission to just hold what you see as what it is, not good nor bad, not judgmental. You don't even have to hold it compassionately. You're just noticing as if you are a neutral observer who's also in this body and in this experience. Just checking in and taking note. Oh, how do you feel in your spirit? How am I feeling in my spirit? In my spirit, I'm feeling solid. I'm feeling held by what I know is a much greater force than myself. I can also feel a little bit of almost picture like a excitement of a toddler in my spirit of there's so many things that I'm awakening to and that I'm deepening into and that's deepening into me. There's so many things that's coming into my awareness and my practices. And there's a giddiness that I can feel and that I can connect to within my spirit. And it feels encouraging. I can also notice that it's causing some energy, which within me can also end up translating into a little bit of anxiety, like that anticipatory anxiety. Because keep in mind, we don't just get anxious about things that we are afraid of. Anxiety can also be something that we are excited about. We can feel anxiety around something that we're excited about. They can feel very similar. And unless we pay attention, we may not know that nuance and that feeling in our body. It's also okay if what I'm describing is not what you're experiencing. Your spirit may be tucked away and not able to be connected to and found right now. Your spirit may be, feeling heavy and uncertain. I don't know. Your check-in and what you're experiencing can be a totally, totally different experience that I'm having in this very moment. Just take note. Just take note. Yeah. When I check in, I also like to feel into, I also like to check in about my experience of what is it that I'm feeling called to do right now? What is it that I need to do right now? Because I have some responsibilities and things that I need to take care of. What is it that I'm feeling called to do and that I need to do? And just working on being clear with how my mind, body, and soul are feeling about the things that I need to take care of. It doesn't mean that if my mind, body, and soul aren't aligned, I can't do what I'm responsible for or fulfill my obligations. but it may mean that I just kind of check in on what's not aligned. Right now, all systems are pointed in the same direction, so I don't have any conflict, but I can. You can, right? Maybe you're not feeling like going to work. Maybe you don't want to cook, whatever time of the day it is that you're watching this. Maybe you don't feel like helping the kids with homework. Maybe you don't feel like going to that workout. Maybe you do feel like going to the workout, but you really need to cook or help the kids with homework, right? There's lots of different things that we can be experiencing when we check in on what it is that we feel called to do and what it is that we need to take care of. I like to use the check in as an opportunity to just get everything on the same page. I'm going to fulfill my responsibility and obligations. What is it that I need to do to get in line or to get aligned with that? For me, it's usually something as simple as aligning with my values and remembering there's a reason why I have this as a responsibility. There's a reason why I take this on as an obligation. And typically, to get back aligned, I recognize that it's not a burden for me to do those things, that those things allow me to do whatever else I need to do. So, what is it that you currently feel called to do right now? Is it nap? Is it work out? Is it work? Is it check in on a loved one or a friend? Is it to reach out for connection? Do you feel called to be watching this right now to check in with yourself? And then also consider what is it that you need to do? What are you responsible for or obligations that may be time sensitive? And are you feeling aligned between those two places? Just taking a moment to check in. You don't have to problem solve in this moment. You don't have to know the answers. You're just being curious. The other thing that's really on my heart to share in this moment regarding check ins, I've really started to deepen into a practice of not just checking in on an individual level, but also checking in with myself as far as my family patterns are concerned. And then specifically checking in with myself as far as the collective is concerned, the overall society. I've found this to be a helpful practice so I can understand where my stuff stops and another person starts. So there's some family patterns that I have within my family. There's family patterns that you have within your family that can sometimes really influence, that can often really influence our experience. And so, in an effort to be as sovereign and liberated as possible, I want to be able to notice what is it that's coursing through my DNA that could be impacting how I'm currently feeling? And am I able to understand the separation between what's happening for me and what may be coming into me from a family pattern type of backgrounds, a family pattern type of consideration? Our family patterns, and if you haven't heard, our family traumas, there is such a thing as transgenerational trauma. Trauma literally gets passed down through our DNA. And not just trauma gets passed down through our DNA. So I like to check in on that part around the family pattern and what may have been passed down. What I know, looking as many generations back as possible. For my family, it's three generations back. But what I know about looking three generations back and the patterns that I've noticed within the family, the patterns as it relates to feelings and what they've experienced, the patterns related to the dynamics within the family, and how those things inform how I experienced and how I experience myself today. When it comes to the collective, it's very similar. I want to be mindful of where my stuff stops right? And there's a blend in all of this. It's not a hard stop, but I want to know where my stuff stops and where what's happening in society and the collective starts. That helps me to understand and separate. If I feel a really significant swell of anxiety, and I can tell you in my work over the past few days, this week in particular, there has been a large increase in the collective anxiety or the collective fear. And so checking in with the collective helps me to understand how much of this may be coming into my life from an outside force and how much of this is really generated through me. It's all interconnected, right? And so I don't mean to talk about it in a way as if it's two totally different entities. And it still helps to just be able to recognize that some of what I'm feeling and experiencing is not of me, even though it's within me. That's a really important practice for people who identify as empaths or as really empathetic. That's a really important practice for folks who identify as really understanding people and taking in their pain, for people who may be like particular attachment styles that really involve getting enmeshed or involved with other people, for folks who may struggle with codependency, for folks who may be people pleasers, that ability to have a pulse check on what's happening in society and to see how that's impacting you so you can get some separation between, I don't want to take that energy on and I want to make sure I'm addressing my own. That's a really important practice. And I find it to be helpful to include in a check in. The beautiful part with all of this, when it comes to our individual healing, our ancestral healing, our family healing, our collective healing, the beautiful part of this is when we incorporate all of those parts into a check in, it becomes second nature. It becomes integrated in who we are and how we operate. And it can take less time, it can go deeper and take more time, but we get to do that in a way that really supports us and what we need in any given moment. So, how are you? How's the check in going? Haven't taken a look at what's happening within you and around you. What is it that you need? Where is it that you can better align? Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.